What's up, everybody? It's Nasty Nate and Mrs. Nasty Nate. Mrs. That wasn't shit. Mrs. Why Not Me? Mrs. Gift from God. We're back with another episode of the That Talk podcast. Today, we're going to talk about our relationship. We're going to continue to do that. I got some great feedback on that last episode. I feel like something that we're lacking right now is the value of a good relationship. Not only like a romantic relationship, but
Sorry.
not only a romantic relationship, but a friendship, all the way down the line. So, especially right now, I feel like we are experiencing a large volume of arguments. So we kind of want to talk about arguing.
We're going to talk about that the whole podcast?
We want to talk about arguing.
Is it going to be the whole podcast? I just want to clarify
It can be.
what we're talking about the whole time.
Something that we struggled with was not arguments, because they're inevitable. Disagreements are inevitable for anybody that thinks that you're going to jump into a relationship and that person's always going to make you happy, and we always fight, we always argue, blah, 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 blah. You're never going to make it. You're never going to make it anywhere if you have this excuse that you don't have a coping mechanism or a system in place that gets you past these arguments. And I think for us, especially me, I always thought the same thing. Well, we always argue. We're always arguing. We're always this. We're always that. And it's like, I think for myself anyways, I didn't have a sense of personal accountability when it came to the disagreement or it came to the argument, that I was a part of the problem. And I think a lot of us do that, is when we get into a disagreement with our partner, the first thing that we start doing is we start defending ourselves, because that's what we're trained to do. And then we talk about what the other person's doing to either continue the argument or to get deeper into it, or to bring up old stuff, or this and that. I feel like what changed our dynamic when we have our disagreements was honestly me stepping up and leading, and not allowing myself to not take personal accountability for my actions. If there's chances are that it's always a two-way street. The problem is that some people most of the time only look one way. So you start looking at your partner, and it's an easy thing to do. You have a bad day, your partner's going to be there. And this is a perfect example. Is last week when we were going to Seattle, I told Caliah I wanted to leave at 1 p.m. Well, 3:30 rolls around and I'm still not even close to done with my bike. But at this point, I'm not taking any chances, making sure it's 100%, because I can't afford to crash. And I was not communicating effectively, and at all. I was telling her one thing and then saying something else, and then getting all huffy puffy and doing all this stuff. And then I finally took a shower, had to look in the mirror, getting out of the shower, and was like, dude, you're throwing a fit right now. Like, the energy was so high all day. It was like tension. I went up to her, I said, hey, you know what? I'm not communicating very well right now. I'm not telling you exactly what I need and how you can help me to where we can get out of here faster. And that's what ultimately is my goal. And she literally just looked at me and said, how can I help? Like, it was just done right there. Like, the simplicity of tucking your pride and tucking your ego, because there's been so many times where I've not wanted to admit that I was wrong. Mm-hmm. There's been so many times where I didn't want to say, maybe this is something that I'm doing. And I think that we fail to do that in every aspect of our life, and our relationships are not protected by that. And I feel like it's a big thing right now with everything that's going on in the world. And so learning how to do that with somebody that's very close to you, and somebody that you care about, and somebody that you can trust, opens your to me, opens your world up to do it everywhere. And honestly, I feel like doing that in our relationship has helped me in every aspect of my life. Do the exact same thing. Hey, you know what? That wasn't very nice. I came off rude. I like taking that accountability with you helped me honestly in my relationships with everybody, because then I'm able to literally go not be on defense all the time.
Yeah.
And kind of be like, did I do something there that could have triggered them?
Yeah.
Did I do something there that wasn't very respectful?
Yeah.
Did I do something there where I assumed or I jumped the gun too soon? And that has just changed our arguments and our disagreements for me. And I kind of just want to ask you, like, what I've seen with you is that all you really want from me is to take accountability and to kind of take control of the conversation. Like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I feel like is going on. This is what I did. And this is what I need. And I feel like that has changed like I said, our dynamic of any disagreement we have. From my end that I've seen, I just kind of want to know, like, what do you think? What have you seen for you? Maybe give some tips to, like, ladies, because I think that men, to be honest, I feel like men are a little more, we think more rational, but I don't really think we are. I think that we think we're rational, but we get closed off, because we get that, like, and I get that sometimes, like, I think I'm being rational because I'm telling you, like, I'm not yelling or I'm not, getting elevated or raising my voice. And I'm like, well, you're wrong. I mean, that's just it. Like, you're wrong. Like, that's not rational. I think I'm being rational because I'm being calm. And that's just, like, I feel like we do that. I feel like sometimes men, we make up our mind and then we close off, and that's not being rational. That's being irrational, because then you're not allowing open communication with your partner. So I kind of just want to know, like, what have you seen from your side that, maybe when you've started something, or maybe, how do you calm me down? Because I figured out kind of how to break down that barrier between us when I feel like you're putting up your wall. Kind of just tell me what you've seen or what you've experimented with, because it's all experiment, I feel like, especially with your, learning your partner, like how you break down that barrier with us.
So, like, from me to you, though?
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, just arguments in general?
I feel like me to you and, and arguments in general, too.
Well, I think arguments in general, like, you have to look at the foundation of your relationship, because that's going to determine how you talk to each other. It's going to determine how you argue, I think. So I would say foundation is huge.
Okay.
So, like, what foundation does your relationship stand on?
Okay. Meaning?
I mean, it just depends. Like, so if you have a wonky foundation, then you're not gonna have good conversation, probably, and disagreements.
Yeah. Okay.
And then as far as me and you, I would say that everything starts with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think for women especially, if you're in a healthy relationship and you have a good foundation, you're not, you're less likely to take things personal.
Yeah.
Like a personal attack. And yes, I think and I think assuming is really dangerous in relationships.
So you, real quick, so you kind of like break that down a little bit, because I like that, like having like on the forefront of your mind that person has your best interest at heart. Mm-hmm. Is kind of stops like from situations escalating, right? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So always trusting, because we're going to make mistakes, And again, like when I say foundation, like if the foundation of your relationship is, I want this person to make me happy, I want this person to fill my cup because I'm not happy, then that relationship is going to suffer, because that other person won't be able to do that. And then those miscommunications or disagreements are going to be way, way uglier and way worse because this person's hurting you now, and now you're assuming it's intentional, and now you love them more than they love you, and just all these scenarios.
It's like a snowball effect.
Yeah. But if you have a foundation of, I come into this relationship, I expect myself to meet my own standards before I demand others to meet those as well. And you have the foundation of, I make myself happy, and this person is allowed to make mistakes. This person is allowed to be human. I'm going to love them through that. They're allowed because I am not dependent on them fulfilling this need for me. It makes it a lot easier, and you're less likely, I feel like, to actually make those mistakes. I would say
you allowing that person to make those mistakes.
Yeah, it kind of frees them.
Okay.
You know, when you're like so bundled up to not disappoint this other person. I mean, a true loving relationship is freedom and acceptance. And you can feel that in the tension and the energy between disagreements. So yeah, and I would say like taking things personal and assuming that person is doing something with the wrong intention is detrimental to the relationship.
I like that. Okay.
Because I really think that, especially as women, like you have to, I mean, men and women, but looking at your man with respect is huge, and being able to, you know, always know that at the end of the day, he's doing what he's doing to try to keep winning you and keep, you know what I mean? Like that's just the masculine instinct is to keep winning you. So I think that if you assume in your mind that your man's doing something without going to him and without talking, you're setting up for a worse scenario than if you go to him and say, hey, this is what happened earlier. I really didn't like it. Like what was, what was going on there, you know, asking, getting clarity, not just assuming. And also not taking it personal, even if something negative did happen.
Yeah, I feel like when we take things personal, we tend to hold on to them a little longer. Like that if you would have taken like that situation that I was talking about with Seattle, like when I wasn't communicating effectively, if you would have taken that personal, instead of you being like, oh, like he just told me what was going on, and instead of moving on from it, if you would have took it personal, we would have been in the same exact spot.
But if I was in this relationship only looking at you to make me happy and not looking towards myself, then I would way more likely take it personal.
Gotcha. So there's like a prerequisite to even
a good argument.
Getting through an argument.
I don't think you can have good arguments or good disagreements until you have looked at the foundation of your relationship. Okay,
so tell me about like a good foundation. Like, give me some like, what do you think? A couple core principles.
Core principles. I would say meeting your own standard is huge.
For yourself.
For yourself. Okay. Because like I've been in relationships where, you know, this person is not doing things that's to my standard or my morals, right? Like texting people, and it's like, oh God, I would never do that, you know, or like deleting texts or whatever they're doing. I'm like, I would never do that, right? And it's like, well, I guess, you know, if I'm going to stay in this relationship, I have to meet them where they're at. So if he's okay with that, I have to force myself to somehow be okay with that and also do it in return. Instead of saying, I'm not okay with that. That's not my standard. And if you want to be with me, you're going to have to meet my standard. Okay. You know, so I feel like, but if you lower your standard to meet other people where they're at, you no longer can demand that same standard that you're asking for.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't. A lot of women too demand respect from men, but don't even respect themselves.
Yeah, wow.
And then you are now a victim in this woman, you know, feminine, masculine dynamic of men should just respect me. It's like as much as I agree that men should be raised as gentlemen and they should respect women, that's not the world we live in because not every man's raised that way. So if you don't respect yourself, expect only attracting men who don't respect you.
Yeah, and I feel like the days of people just handing out respect is like no longer. Like everyone says, you know, respect is earned. Like there's something about, to me, about the character of a person that just shows respect when they don't know people just because.
Yeah.
Which is where I'm really trying to be for myself, is just to show respect to everybody, no matter what, because I feel like that's what everything was built on. Like now, you know, these days you have to, you know, I think if someone does you dirty, that's completely different. But I think now these days is like, you have to have something to have respect. You have to have done something, or like, it's ridiculous. And like, but like you said, those days are long gone. So it's like, how do you get, especially as a woman, how do you get respect? Well, you have to respect yourself.
I still look at men as, I'm not giving like the poor behavior an excuse. Like, you should still treat women with respect. 100%. I have no respect for men who treat women like sluts or like whores. Like, I don't have any respect for men who do that. However, I'm saying for women who are demanding to be respected yet don't respect themselves, I think that's where you start. Okay. So in coming into a relationship, the most important thing is not what I'm getting out of this, but what do I have to put in this, right? So you go from singular to now you're a unit.
Yeah.
And so you have to look at it as, what am I putting in this? And then what I'm going to expect out of this, am I meeting those standards as well already before I expect somebody else to?
Yeah, and if you think about it too, that's a good point, because if you come into something expecting something, then when you do hit those bumps in the road, you're automatically going to look to that person to have them figure it out and have them take accountability, regardless of who started it or who did the wrong or whose fault it is. You're automatically going to look to that person to fix it and to take responsibility for it when it might even be yours to take.
Expectations are very dangerous. And I want to be clear that there's a difference between expectations. I don't think you should have expectations of a spouse. I think you should have standards that you both agree on. And so the difference between expectation and standards is, expectations are, I expect you to act a certain way all the time and you can't make a mistake, right? But if I have a standard that I live by, and if I have a standard that I'm fulfilling, you're allowed to make mistakes, because it's not going to necessarily, I'm not going to take it personal, or it's not going to affect me when you fail at meeting that particular standard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that.
And I'm also looking more internal than external towards you.
Okay.
And I also think coming in more principles into the relationship are, you have to take that person as yourself. You're no longer thinking about just your needs. You're no longer just thinking about, that person is literally now a part of you.
Yeah.
So I don't believe in a relationship that you can hurt the other person without hurting yourself. So when you cheat, you're not just cheating on that person, you're cheating yourself.
Yeah.
You're not just lying to them, you're lying to yourself. So any standard that you have is, and I think the healthiest relationships are where both people are taking each other as themselves. You can literally not go wrong with that scenario because you know their intention is good.
Yeah.
You care for their needs just as much. Each person is going to be just as fulfilled.
Yeah, and so I think too, you know, even going a step past that, prerequisite to that is you have to get to know this person. Like, you can't even know if this person shares the same standards as she's talking about, or has the same intentions, because a lot of us right now are so worried about the flesh, about surface, about, you know, the initial attraction isn't because of character or morals or standards. It's because of physical attraction or sex. And then guess what? The reason that you can't get past these arguments, bro, you can be with whoever you want to be with. The reason you get past these arguments, and you have one argument and you move on. Girls have one argument and they get a new dude. Dudes have one argument, they already got girls in the DMs. It's because you don't even know that person. Like, she's talking about standards. She's talking about, like, all these things have to be talked about. All these things have to be, before any kind of physical, you know, things are obviously very important, but that's not what's going to save you in a relationship. Like,
Yeah.
Sex isn't going to save you. Like the fact that, you know, old girl looks good is not going to save you, bro. Like that's not going to save your relationship. That's not going to keep you guys together. You know, and I looked at it like, you know, I had I lived that fleshly life for a long time. And I think for me, what put it in perspective for me is that I was like, man, this person is one, you know, accident or one time being sick or, you know, like one thing away from not looking like that. And then who are they? Like,
Yeah.
what do I know about them? And that the reason that came to me is because that happened to me.
Yeah.
Like, I was one accident away. I was one wheelie away from not looking like how I was before.
Yeah.
And then what did I have to fall back on? I feel bad for the person I was with. I mean, nothing.
Yeah, not much to offer is what you're saying.
Not much to offer.
Yeah.
So when she talks about these standards and, you know, all these things that you have to kind of have this base upon and have this foundation in your relationship, you have to know that person in order to even know these standards and these principles. Because if you don't know how that person's going to react. You don't know how they're, you know, if they're going to get up and leave. And that's what I think is great about both of us, is that we've spent so much time together and we've spent so much like meaningful time and in deep conversation and in times like this where, like, to me, I know where she stands, and so that's why I don't trip on arguments. Like, and I think that's when people get all insecure in when they have arguments or disagreements, they get insecure, they get anxiety because they don't know how this person's going to react because they don't know them.
Yeah.
And that's how I used to get, like, oh, like, she going to do this, is she going to do that? Like, I never worry about that with Caliah because these are things that we've talked about that we do. Like,
Well, also, if you believe in attraction, like if you're abiding by that within yourself, you're going to attract people who are that.
mm-hmm.
So it's like you kind of don't have to worry about it when you're doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're abiding by those things, you're less worried about it. But when you're the person cheating, when you're the person doing these things, when you're the person lying, when you're the person, you know, doing some dirty shit, you're always worried about it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's what you are attracting.
Yeah.
And it's what you are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So even if, because in our relationship, we've had our disappointments, you know, but we've had our growth over that.
Mm-hmm.
But I never expected you to step up and grow.
Yeah.
Like, throughout our breakups and everything, like, I fully accepted you for where you were, but I knew I had to live by my own standards, so I knew it was time to be done.
Yeah.
And I could love you for where you were, but what was cool about our relationship was that you always did step up.
Yeah.
And you always did rise, you know, to the standard, or you know, take it more seriously. But it was I never expected it. Like, not one time was I like, oh, we're gonna break up and he's gonna go figure himself out and we're gonna get back together. Like, I had surrendered to what was going on and loved you for who you were, but it kind of accepted, like, if it's meant to be, it'll be meant to be. If it's not, then, like, I love you and I wish you well down your path. But it was just kind of cool that in our relationship
So I feel like, you know, something we can probably touch on and then maybe even end on right here is before you are able to have these things that we're talking about, you must have them within yourself. So if you don't know what you stand for, if you don't know what standards you have, if you don't know, you know, your moral compass, like, you can't even approach somebody to be in a relationship.
You shouldn't even be dating.
No,
like,
you shouldn't be dating because those are the things that keep people together. None of the other shit matters. Like, nothing else besides your character, your moral compass, your standards, all these things that really only rely on how you are when I talk about character, when no one's around, when nothing's in it for you, and when you get nothing in return when you do something. Like, those things have to be set in stone. If they're not set in stone, you do not belong in dating or in seeing people or in a relationship, because
knowing who you are,
knowing who you are, because then you can't literally there's nothing for you to match up to find out if you have something for longevity.
Or even what to give to a relationship.
Exactly, or what to give, because like I said before, I feel like there's, we live in such a fleshly world. This whole the dating, and like even as far as marriage, like people don't even know why they're getting married these days.
Well, people idolize the flesh, and I think like, especially like our generation and younger, everybody's all about what you look like.
Yeah.
Everybody's all about what you look like. And I'm not saying don't take care of yourself physically, because that's important to take
Very
care of
important.
yourself physically. But if all you care about as a female is
WAP.
is WAP, then like what you need to realize is that
Bro, there's WAP everywhere. Bro, let me tell you, there's WAP everywhere.
Like
and it's all the same.
What do you bring to the table besides that? Because if that's all you have to give, this guy can find that anywhere. You're literally replaceable.
There's no uniqueness about WAP.
And if a dude, the same thing. Like if all you have is like the size of what you are or whatever, or you just like, I don't know, you have that self-esteem from your body, and it's like
that goes away, G.
And it goes away, and
been taken from me many of times.
And it also is like, it's out there. Like you're not the only one with it. So
buff, bro.
like, what are you bringing to the table?
Exactly, and that's what I tell people. It's not about what makes you better. It's about what makes you different. And I tell people that, in their self-development, in their gift. Me with the bike, I talk to people about that. I'm not better than anybody. I just figured out what makes me unique, and that's what we need to focus on also, in what you can bring to the table for your spouse, is like, what makes you unique? Like what makes you different?
What makes that relationship meaningful?
What makes it meaningful? Absolutely. And again,
memorable.
And things that cannot be taken from you. Anything fleshly can be taken. The body can be taken.
Yeah.
The WAP, there's WAP everywhere. Like the WAP is around the corner. The WAP is next door.
Yeah, and girls like, talking about how theirs is better, and it's like,
nobody cares.
It's just like, but what you don't understand, even if you're standing in front of a room of girls where you're like, mine's better, there's better than yours out there
somewhere. Yeah.
So if you are dating a man based on that, like, wow, she's the best, guess what, there's someone better,
bro. And I said this the other day on Instagram, like, whatever you validate yourself with, if you validate yourself with flesh and with material and with those are things that are going to be asked of you, because that's the energy that you're attracting. So
like from a female.
Exactly. So if you validating, when I validated with the body and the bike and all these things, and like when I had nothing, I didn't get any chicks that were deep. I was like, I don't get why I can't find any chicks that are like.
Because you weren't going deep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to, like we've talked about, like I've talked about individually on the podcast, and like we talked about last time, you must become what you want before you can even begin to think you can have it.
But also, I think we should say too, like something that you should tell men and tell women is like, when you go to that depth and you get spiritual, like there isn't sex like that. So as much as you want to,
you have to get past the rough parts, and then you got to get past that first initial part where it's patience. I mean, it's just like anything good takes time. Anything good takes time. Easy come, easy go. So we'll leave you guys with that for this episode. We're going to try to keep them a little shorter, just so we can get specific subjects about our relationship in each one. And check us both out on Instagram, at Nasty Nate, at Caliah G Papaya. Caliah is now on YouTube. Ooh. So I don't know if she's going to put these on YouTube or not, but this will be on my YouTube. As always, check me out, hit me up, send me a DM, whatever you need. Ladies, whatever you need from Caliah, send her a DM.